Thank you very much. The motion that religion harms society is about religion's impact on society, not about its basis, doctrines, or definition. This is not an essentialist claim, but is clearly a causal claim. We can all agree that religion is associated with good works, and many of them advocate some good moral principles, but that is not the point of the motion. If a religion which teaches people to love their enemies actually ends up inspiring violent persecution and war, then in practice it harms society, whatever its holy books might say. Religions often paint an idealized picture of society, and where everyone has the same religion, it might indeed foster social harmony and inclusion. But we live in a multicultural world, and in such a world, religion has far more impact through the divisions it creates than any unity it brings. Think of the Crusades and the countless other wars between religions, as well as wars within them. Islamists, Sunni and Shia, who fought each other for nearly 1400 years, still routinely blow each other up. But such conflict used to be a routine aspect of Christianity too. Heretics have always been persecuted, but the Reformation quickly brought large-scale mutual slaughter between Catholics and Protestants across Europe, including the French Wars of Religion, the Dutch Wars, the 30 Years' War, and the English Civil War. These were clearly religious, not economic, or due to long-standing social tension. But whenever religions, especially the big monotheisms with their monopolistic orthodoxies, have serious political power, they tend to persecute and kill dissenters. Religion harms society intellectually as well as morally, and as Michael and Peter argued, it corrupts our sense of morality by encouraging us by encouraging us to believe wildly implausible things on the basis of ancient texts whose writers' understanding of the world was pitifully limited. To take just one example, it's more than 150 years since Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace, who incidentally died exactly 100 years ago today, discovered the theory of evolution. Since then, that's been supported by huge amounts of evidence, from paleontology to biogeography to comparative anatomy, even molecular biology. Who possibly, in the 21st century, as an informed person, could deny evolution? And on what basis? Well, we all know, don't we? Intellectual harm can cause moral harm. If you really believe that I have an immortal soul that faces either heavenly bliss or eternal hellfire, depending on my religious commitment when I die, then you might well think that you're doing me a favour if you torture me to make me confess Christianity on my deathbed, as long as it's the right species of Christianity, the one that God favours. Beliefs like this can lead otherwise decent people to do appalling things for the sake of an entirely mythical afterlife. Here are some other beliefs with damaging moral implications: that women should be subservient to men, that homosexuality is a sin, or contraception, or blood transfusion, that apostasy deserves death, as Noni emphasised, that some people communicate with evil spirits which can be defeated only by killing them, that the Jews have an absolute right to a particular area of land, irrespective of the wishes of those who lived there, that martyrdom will secure eternal life in the company of 70 willing virgins, that Christians will be raptured up to heaven at Jesus' second coming, so that catastrophic climate change or nuclear war can be welcomed rather than worried about. Surely, none of these would be widely held in the 21st century were it not for the pernicious influence of beliefs based on Bronze Age stories and ancient nomadic values, as well as some more recent fantasies. Now, of course, a more enlightened religious morality is possible, but the whole idea of treating morality as obedience to a higher being corrupts it. We've heard about the 10 Commandments. The first 4 of those commandments are all about paying respect to God, and they're the ones that are most distinctive as opposed to countless other moral codes. It's all about ritual purity. It's both absurd and dangerous to tie morality to religion and religious values. It harms society by erecting completely spurious species of merit, whereby doing things for God is more important than doing them for your fellow man. It also risks undermining morality, because if everybody's told that without religion there's no morality, then as religion or religious consensus slowly and inexorably dies, that could undermine the moral consensus in society. But perhaps the biggest harm that religion does to society is to divide people into mutually distrustful and potentially antagonistic groups. Purity of belief, according to the Bible, justifies genocide of indigenous peoples who would otherwise pollute the chosen ones. Catholics and Protestants are dissuaded from intermarrying. Religious divisions between communities persist and grow, and after generations of separation, any tension between them, even if it has nothing to do with religion, can provoke open conflict. Jews get persecuted, they in turn persecute Palestinians. Religious tension lies behind current or recent conflicts all over the world, as anyone who follows the news will be well aware. Yes.
Do you not accept that most of conflict in the world, including terrorism, has to do with things like nationalism, anti-colonialism, power, in fact, very secular, materialistic ideologies thinly disguised under the garb of religion to gain moral sort of legitimacy and support from equally fanatic and ridiculous human beings?
Well, in reply to that, first of all, historically that doesn't stand up. There are lots of conflicts which were quite clearly inspired by religion. But the second point, just as important, is that I have made the point that religions entrench divisions in society. The reason why you have this split between Catholics and Protestants or Jews and Palestinians is because they don't intermarry. Why? Because of their religious purity. And that makes it a breeding ground for resentment between the two communities. If you didn't have religion, you wouldn't have the excuse. You wouldn't have the politicians being able to persuade their flock that they are doing God's will by fighting their neighbours. Now, even on our doorstep, we're used to this. We have separate communities in Northern Ireland at each other's throats for centuries, and it's taken a long, long time to bring anything like peace. Years ago, I recall meeting a rather threatening young man who, in an Ulster accent, asked me whether I was a Catholic and a Protestant. I thought, this is all right, I'm an atheist. Yes, but are you a Catholic atheist or a Protestant atheist? Your community defines you. And even if the religion is no longer the primary criterion of membership, had it not been for the religious division in the first place, you would not have had that divided community. Yeah.
You mentioned the troubles of Irish, but surely you can say that maybe some of you think religion is more an expression of national identity than the Protestants settlers of the people of the plantation and the Catholics that were traditionally enslaved on the plantation.
I think the separation in Ireland, as in many other countries, is quite clearly very largely influenced by religion. I think without the religious divide, you would not get the prohibition on marriage between the groups, which is what has largely preserved them. I must conclude. Much of what I've said is utterly familiar to all of us, and would be even more so to those who live in theocratic countries, or if we turn the clock back 3 or 4 centuries here in England. Religion, whenever it has real power, harms society by corrupting intellectual inquiry, promoting irrational beliefs and spurious values, and by putting religious purity and a supposed afterlife ahead of genuine moral concern for others in this one life that we share. Worst of all, religion fatally divides communities on entirely imaginary grounds, encouraging gratuitous conflict and demonisation of others. I urge you to support the motion.